Tonight, fighting back.
Question meant to shame me about another potential rape victim.
Nancy Mace refuses to back down even while the usual suspects pile on.
She was acting like an 8th grader.
She joins us with what she didn't, but wanted to say to George Stephanopoulos.
Good effing luck getting me back on.
Who is this guy?
I'm not conservative. You know what I am? I'm a man of common sense.
Trump says he's not conservative and flip-flops on a TikTok ban. Bill O'Reilly on why candidate Trump suddenly went rogue. Outrage. A vicious beating leaves a teenager in critical condition. Why her attacker isn't being charged as an adult. What will it take to keep our kids safe? And viewer's guide.
We are not supposed to be doing this.
Cuomo goes one-on-one with Tucker. What you need to know about these two heavyweights.
So I still want to know why you came after me as much as you did.
Welcome to the Ferris Show on television. Hope you had a great weekend. First tonight, what's happening with Donald Trump? Just look at the past couple of days. It's like a different human being. For starters, as we are 239 days out from the election, the former president found a way to anger his far-right supporters while leaving traditional Republicans scratching their head.
You know, people say you're conservative. I'm not conservative. You know what I am? I'm a man of common sense. And a lot of conservative policies are common sense.
All right. So the Republican candidate for president is not conservative in his mind. He also raised eyebrows with these comments about the vaccine. Quote, the pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to help beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. You're welcome, Joe. 9 months approval time versus 12 years that it would have taken you. That is in response to President Biden's comments during the State of the Union. While the former president is making it clear he wants to reach independent voters, at least right now, this tack to the center is costing him with his own base. Case in point, conspiracy theorist, radio host Alex Jones strongly criticized Trump's post. If I see any more of this from Trump, any more of this, I may have to go on the warpath politically. One could argue that Alex Jones is always on the warpath, but I digress. The former president faces a real challenge between picking up the voters he needs to win in November, that being suburban swing voters, suburban women, and not losing the base he desperately needs to turn out. Bill O'Reilly's here, host of the No Spin News, author of the coming book, Confronting the President's No Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. Bill, has somebody confronted Donald Trump and told him he needs to tack to the center?
I would assume that his campaign is laying out demographics that he has to appeal to, particularly in the 10 swing states, if he wants to be president again. I would assume that conversation is ongoing.
All right, so he moves to the center, and then what? Does he stay there?
I don't know. You'd have to, I'm not surprised by any of this because I wrote the book, The United States of Trump, which tells you exactly who Donald Trump is. He's never been a conservative thinker, ever, in his entire life. He used to be a Democrat and support the Democrats in New York City and state. What he is a traditional guy, a linear thinker. He believes that times were better when there was a order in society. So he appointed Supreme Court justices who are traditional jurists. That was the most important thing he did for the country in his 4 years. Because if Hillary Clinton had beat him, we would have an entirely different country right now. So Trump, I don't know why people are worried about this. There aren't very many hard right voters anymore. The mass of voters are, yes, conservative Republicans, but they're not loons.
All right. So when you say traditional, and you've made this point before, right, that the debate in America is not between left and right or red versus blue, but is traditional values versus progressive values. And it breaks that way. It explains the working class divide. You've got the working class who believes in traditional values. Perhaps if we thought about what Donald Trump believes in rather than traditional values, does he just believe in transactional values?
Yes, his whole, he's not a politician per se. He could have never written Confronting the Presidents. He doesn't know very much about that. He governed the way he ran his business. It was deal after deal after deal after deal. And most of his deals worked out for the country, economically for certain. At the border in his last year, that was totally under control, and we didn't have chaos overseas. But all of them were deals that he made with people like Putin and with the North Korean loon, okay? That's how he governs. I mean, he's not somebody who goes in and reads position papers like Barack Obama did. He doesn't do that. He just has his people. They tell him this is the problem, and he figures out a way that he thinks he can solve it. He's a simple man in that regard.
So you just brought up Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. You can argue whether or not deals with them worked or didn't work. One thing that he made a hallmark of his presidency was confronting China, right? You had the tariffs. He was the guy who was going to talk tough. He was going to put Xi Jinping in his place, on and on and on and on. Part of that involves stopping Chinese spying on the United States and what the Chinese are doing to our kids, which he was on board with until this weekend. Take a listen.
There's, a lot of good, and there's a lot of bad with TikTok. But the thing I don't like is that without TikTok, you can make Facebook bigger. And I consider Facebook to be an enemy of the people.
Okay, everybody will get crazy about enemy of the people on and on. But at least Facebook is an American company controlled by American laws. TikTok is not. It's controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. They can use it in all sorts of ways to work and get intelligence on America. Why did Donald Trump change? Gee, I don't know. Jeff Yass recently met with Trump before the change in the tune. Yass has a $33 billion stake in TikTok. As of February, he is the largest donor in the 2024 U.S. election cycle, having donated $34 million to Republican groups and campaigns. Isn't this exactly the kind of politics that Donald Trump says, hey, I'm going to stand up for the little guy and stop?
I don't know. I'd have to see what the American intelligence agencies say about TikTok. And they have not released their position papers on it. So it's one of these things where you have to balance freedom and access to the internet through TikTok against national security. So you say hold on. Due respect, Bill. Okay, the head of the FBI, okay, and the director of national intelligence both said that they have a high degree of concern about TikTok. This is the headline. Intelligence officials warn of mounting privacy national security concerns from TikTok. How is it a good idea? How can you say that, oh, by the way, this guy who said he wanted to ban TikTok suddenly doesn't want to ban TikTok, and it just happens to be that one of his donors is a big investor in TikTok, and we go, oh, well, we don't know. Come on. Okay, I'm going to right back at you with due respect. The head of the FBI and national intelligence under Joe Biden are going to cover their butts, Leland. That's what they're going to do. I'd like to see some hard news come out of those precincts. Tell me what is happening, what the Chinese are doing, so I can make an informed decision. Okay? Is that unreasonable? Just telling me you're nervous about it is just gibberish. It's a CYA, and they all do it. Now, as far as the donor is concerned, okay, it doesn't look good if this guy's got a lot of holdings in TikTok and he's pumping money into the Republican precincts, and now Donald Trump has changed his mind. But in the next time I interview Trump, I'll ask him, why did you change your mind? Was it because of this guy? But right now, you're making the determination that it's a quid pro quo. It might be, and you're right to raise the question, but we don't know for sure.
Well, that's the whole point of how the soft money in politics or even the hard money works, right? You don't know whether there's a quid pro quo or not.
But you got to ask.
Obviously, it's the argument that Joe Biden keeps making. Right, but you have to agree that this is exactly the kind of politics that Donald Trump says he wanted to stop. I don't know what else would be.
But we don't know. We don't know.
Chris Wray became the FBI director under Donald Trump. FBI chief, TikTok screams of U.S. nationals. You go, well, whose warning would you accept, Bill? Marco Rubio says the same thing. Who is an acceptable voice to warn of TikTok that you'd accept?
I don't accept anything. I want to see it. What's the FBI data? Show me some data. I'm a journalist. I'm not going to accept what these guys.
I think the data is that it's...
Show me.
The data is in
Show
TikTok's...
me what the China... Leland, this is a journalism lesson. Show me what the Chinese capability is here in the United States by having TikTok everywhere. Show me.
They have
Chicken Little.
They have access. They have access through the app. Okay, and we can all agree that the Chinese Communist Party has a controlling stake in TikTok through their various tangles and spider webs. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now we can agree that by law in China, any company has to turn over data to the Chinese intelligence services, right?
Yeah.
That's okay.
So what's the
now
data?
We can all
what do they get?
It is everything that TikTok collects. That means they can collect keystrokes. That means they can collect location data. That means they can collect demographic data. That means they can collect real-time position data on American citizens. How is that a good thing for the Chinese intelligence services to have?
All they have to do, all the Chinese have to do is get the census. And they can get all that. Look, I'm not diminishing the threat of TikTok. I don't know. I'm agnostic. And I'm not diminishing there might be a possible quid pro quo between Trump and the Republicans and the guy who's got a fortune invested in TikTok. It absolutely could happen. And journalists should be raising.
If this was Joe Biden, you'd be screaming bloody murder.
No, that's bull. Today, I went on the air, and I'm going to make you look bad here, and I said this Adderall stimulus business, this is bull. You can't say that. You can't say Biden was jacked up when he gave his State of the Union. You have no proof of that at all. Could it have happened? Sure. Did it happen? We got people on the right saying, yeah, he was jacked up. Hey, you can't do that. So don't give me any of that, Leland. Can I weigh in on the Nancy Mace thing for a minute?
Yeah, she's coming up.
From the very beginning, ABC News, from the very beginning, was in the tank for the Democratic Party because George Stephanopoulos is their chief correspondent. He is the top-of-the-line news guy, And Stephanopoulos, as we all know, was Bill Clinton's top advisor and a very devoted Democrat. What Stephanopoulos did to Nancy Mace, and the Congresswoman was absolutely correct in calling him out, was basically said, hey, you say you're a rape victim, yet you're supporting a rapist. Well, Donald Trump has not been convicted in a court of law of any rape or anything else in this regard. It's a civil trial whereby hearsay convicted Trump. I told my audience today on BillO'Reilly.com, 40 states in the union that would not have happened. But in New York, the jury hates him, and hearsay led to his conviction. Not only that, but the victim in this civil case doesn't even know what year this allegedly happened, and then when awarded this ridiculous judgment, laughs about it and says, oh, now we can go out and spend the money. What should we buy? This is a scandal. This whole thing is a scandal. Yet Stephanopoulos uses it as a club to try to humiliate Ms. Mace. That is unacceptable in journalism or a civil society.
All right. Well, I'll count you in Nancy Mace's corner and a skeptic of George Stephanopoulos.
I'm happy to be there.
Well, we appreciate you being with us. When a little later, we're going to look at another big cable news conversation, as it were, the two heavyweights, Cuomo and Carlson. in the next hour. Bill, stand by. Over the weekend, Joe Biden apologized to MSNBC for calling Laken Riley's killer a, quote, illegal. Now, Joe Biden's used that term countless times in the past. His staff evidently has told him over and over again that it's off limits, but didn't quite get through.
Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal.
But do you regret using the word illegal to describe immigrants last night, sir?
Well, I don't regret it. It was technically not supposed to be here. And I shouldn't have used illegal.
All right, so Thursday he said it. Friday he doubled down because he hadn't been talked to by his aides yet. And Saturday he apologized to MSNBC. It shouldn't surprise anyone, really. There's an awful lot of tape with Biden using the term illegal over and over and over again. Among other things, he eulogized notorious racist and good friend, Republican Senator Strom Thurmond.
He asked, I'm told by Nancy, a guy named Biden from the state of Delaware, to be one of his eulogists. I'll never figure him out. And Strom, I won't forgive you. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent.
Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. Unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
So it'd be easy to dismiss all those things as the musing of a younger man who, like all of us, is entitled to grow and morph with the times, become more enlightened. Except in unscripted moments, as we have seen, Biden reverts back to the meme, all the way back to the 1970s, in case you forgot. Here he is on Thursday saying Laken Riley was killed by an illegal, and then Friday he used it again.
Do you regret using the word illegal to describe immigrants last night, sir?
Well, I don't regret it. It was technically not supposed to be here.
Maya Angelou said to believe people when they show you who they are the first time. An unscripted Joe Biden still sounds like your typical 1970s Southern Democrat. Next, as you heard, Nancy Mace goes on offense, what the South Carolina Congresswoman didn't say to ABC's George Stephanopoulos, who asked about her rape. What happened when you guys said goodbye to each other?
It was very awkward. I actually shook his hand, and
Was he surprised?
He was surprised, and he was angry. He was just this little man standing there, this little troll sitting
He got up?
there.
Google's Gemini could be worse than we thought. One writer found that the AI program actually tried to censor what Americans could search and think. What if Google really does want to control your kid's mind?
Eighth grader.
I just
wonder
wonder
shaming
how
him.
stupid Jonathan Lemire she thinks people are.
So now a rape victim is stupid. That's just some of the fallout over Congresswoman Nancy Mace's interview with ABC. Evidently, Mika Brzezinski forgot about the whole Believe All Women hashtag. Mace spoke openly about her own rape shortly before she announced her run for Congress in 2019. ABC used this clip to intro her interview.
From some of us who've been raped, it can take 25 years to get up the courage and talk about being a victim of rape.
Shortly after, George Stephanopoulos asked Mace why she supports Donald Trump, despite the fact that a jury held him liable in sexual assault allegations from the 1990s.
It's a shame that you will never feel, George, and I'm not going to sit here on your show and be asked a question meant to shame me about another potential rape victim. I'm not going to do that.
It's actually not about shaming you. It's a question about Donald
No, you
Trump.
are shaming.
With us now, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, Republican from South Carolina, in her first TV interview since, what do we call it, the dust-up?
Yeah, the dust up.
Okay, so we'll start at the end, which you never do in an interview. But what happened when you guys said goodbye to each other?
It was very awkward. I actually shook his hand, and
Was he surprised?
He was surprised, and he was angry. He was just this little man standing there, this little troll sitting there. He got up? No, he didn't get up, but, just giving me the side eye and being very ugly. Just his whole demeanor was nasty. But that's what these people do. That's what the far left does. And look, this is a guy that stood up for Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. I mean, the guy worked for the Clintons, and there were a lot of accusations flying around, a lot of misogyny, and apparently a lot of sexual assault, allegedly, as well. I mean, it's disgusting to see how he handled this entire episode yesterday, and then to see the likes of David Axelrod and all these others on the left coming after me yesterday after that interview is outrageous. Every woman in this country should be offended by the interview and then by the reaction by the far left.
So to be clear, during the Clinton administration, there was obviously, I think, sexual misconduct. You could say having relations with an intern. No, at least verified accusations of sexual assault during the time. But if you think about...
Well, there have been women that have come forward and made those accusations.
There's definitely been women who made those accusations. But so far, they've not been fully litigated. If you think about that interview with Stephanopoulos, do you wish you had brought up the Clintons during it?
No, I mean, I think from my perspective, I was taking the high road. And the high road is...
Do you think he was surprised?
I think he was surprised because he kept coming back. I mean, he kept coming back.
Rule number one, when there's a hole, you don't keep digging.
No, and that's what he did 3, 4, 5, 6 times. He kept digging, but I wasn't going to go there because I wasn't going to let him have a win. I don't need a man explaining to me or mansplaining to me what rape is. And I was assaulted and raped at the age of 16. I didn't need him telling me how I should feel. I know how I felt because I've been on a journey for 30 years, a journey of shame and judgment that he will never understand and never know. He can't possibly understand it. But to sit there and lecture me about rape and say things, quite frankly, that open up him and ABC News to grave liability because Donald Trump was not convicted of rape. He was not held liable for rape. That's not what happened.
Look, the words matter here. He wasn't convicted. He was not convicted of anything because that is
correct.
What a criminal trial does. Did you know that this was going to come up? How did this get booked? This was what, Thursday, Friday? They said you want to be on this week?
This was coming into the weekend. We were going to do ABC News this week with George Stephanopoulos, and it was supposed to be about 2024. So I was all ready to talk about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden in the 2024 race for the general election. The president had just given his State of the Union. All of that, I would imagine, would come into a conversation about 2024. But the guy literally led with me being raped. And you can see the pain on my face. I wince at the beginning because he shares this clip of me from 2019. South Carolina was doing a fetal heartbeat bill. There were no exceptions for rape or incest. And I had never told anyone, except for my parents and a few close friends, my story. And I got up there. I was angry because no women were speaking up for victims. No rape victims their voices weren't being heard. And I had the courage to decide that I'm going to tell my story and I'm going to write an amendment to get exceptions into this bill. We were the first state in the nation to get exceptions for rape and incest in that fetal heartbeat bill when I did that. But it's painful for me to watch that speech. It's painful. It's incredibly painful.
No, I can imagine that. Now, look, we know each other fairly well. I could see the change in your demeanor there.
Yeah.
He sort of looked like he had caught the canary, right? He seemed pretty happy with himself. First question out of the gate. The 4 mostly highly rated Sunday shows reach 9.3 million people per week. I think there's a question here now for Republicans and specifically for Trump supporters, of which you are one. He endorsed you, you endorsed him. Is it time to say you're not going to do the Sunday shows anymore?
I actually paused doing Sunday shows for a long time now. This was my first time really back on a Sunday show.